You've isolated me from everyone I love, and now you want to steal everything I've worked for? Rose's voice shook with fury as she confronted Lisa in her own living room. I may be 71, but I'm not the helpless old woman you thought I was. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories reach. 8 months earlier, Rose Patterson had been delighted when her son Tom announced he was getting remarried. At 45, Tom had been divorced for 3 years, and Rose worried about him being lonely. His first wife, Carol, had been wonderful, but their marriage had simply grown apart after 20 years together. Her name is Lisa, Tom had said during their Sunday dinner at Rose's house. She's 38, works in real estate, and Mom, she's amazing. I haven't felt this happy in years. Rose could see the joy radiating from her son's face. Tom was a gentle, trusting man who worked as a high school history teacher. He'd been devastated by his divorce and had thrown himself into his work, rarely dating. If he'd found love again, Rose was thrilled for him. When do I get to meet her? Rose asked, already planning how to make a good impression. Next Sunday, if that works for you. She's excited to meet you. She's very family-oriented. Lisa Martinez arrived the following Sunday looking stunning in a flowing sundress, her dark hair perfectly styled, carrying a beautiful bouquet of roses and a bottle of expensive wine. She was petite and graceful, with warm brown eyes and a smile that seemed to light up the room. Mrs. Patterson, I've heard so much about you, Lisa said, embracing Rose warmly. Tom talks about you constantly. These roses are from my garden. I thought you might enjoy them. Rose was immediately charmed. Lisa was articulate, well-mannered, and clearly devoted to Tom. Throughout dinner, she asked thoughtful questions about Rose's life, her late husband Frank, and her memories of raising Tom. Tom tells me you were a nurse for 35 years, Lisa said. That must have been so rewarding, helping people during their most vulnerable moments. It was the best job in the world, Rose replied, pleased that Tom had shared details about her career, though I don't miss the 12-hour shifts. Lisa laughed warmly. I can imagine. You must have so many interesting stories. As the evening progressed, Rose found herself genuinely liking Lisa. She was intelligent, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in becoming part of the family. Most importantly, she made Tom happy in a way Rose hadn't seen since his early 20s. Tom and Lisa's courtship was swift, but seemed solid. They were married 6 months later in a small ceremony at Rose's church, with Rose proudly serving as Tom's best woman and Lisa's friend Jennifer as maid of honor. I'm so grateful to have you as a mother-in-law, Lisa whispered to Rose during the reception. I never had a close relationship with my own mother, so having you in my life means everything to me. Rose felt tears of happiness spring to her eyes. You're the daughter I never had, Lisa. Welcome to the family. After the wedding, Lisa seemed determined to become an integral part of Rose's life. She called frequently, stopped by with groceries or small gifts, and gradually began offering to help with tasks that were becoming more challenging for Rose. Rose, I noticed you seemed a little overwhelmed paying bills last week, Lisa said during one visit about 2 months after the wedding. Would you like me to help organize your finances? I deal with complex financial documents in real estate all the time. Rose had indeed been struggling with her finances lately. Since Frank's death 5 years earlier, she'd managed her own budget, but the paperwork seemed to grow more confusing each year. Having Lisa's professional expertise seemed like a godsend. That would be wonderful, dear. I've been putting off organizing everything because it feels so overwhelming. Lisa spent the next several visits helping Rose set up a more organized system for managing her bills, investments, and medical expenses. She was patient, thorough, and seemed genuinely concerned about Rose's financial security. You're in better shape than you think, Lisa assured her. Your pension and Social Security are solid, and Frank left you well provided for. We just need to make sure everything is organized and that you're not paying unnecessary fees. Lisa suggested that Rose consider consolidating some of her accounts to make management easier. She also recommended that Rose update her power of attorney documents, since the current ones were outdated. Tom and I have been talking, and we'd like to make sure that if anything ever happens to you, we can step in immediately to help. Right now, your legal documents are so old that we might have trouble accessing your accounts if you were hospitalized or needed emergency assistance. This made sense to Rose. She trusted Tom completely, and Lisa had proven herself to be caring and competent. Together, they visited Rose's lawyer and updated her documents, giving Tom and Lisa joint power of attorney for both financial and medical decisions. The changes began subtly. Lisa started suggesting that Rose's longtime doctor, Dr. Williams, might not be the best choice for someone her age. Rose, I've been researching geriatric specialists, and I found someone who might be much better suited to your needs. Dr. Stevens has a wonderful reputation for working with patients in their 70s. Rose had been seeing Dr. Williams for 15 years and trusted him completely, but Lisa seemed so knowledgeable about medical care that Rose agreed to meet with the new doctor. Dr. Stevens was younger and more aggressive in his treatment recommendations. He immediately suggested changes to Rose's medications and proposed additional tests that Dr. Williams had never mentioned. "Your previous doctor was probably being too conservative," Dr. Stevens explained. "At your age, we need to be more proactive about preventing problems before they start." Lisa was present for the appointment and took extensive notes, asking detailed questions about Rose's medications and treatment plan. Rose appreciated having an advocate, but she felt slightly overwhelmed by all the changes being proposed. Over the following weeks, Lisa began taking a more active role in Rose's medical care. She organized Rose's medications, scheduled appointments, and even started accompanying Rose to routine visits. "I want to make sure you're getting the best possible care," Lisa explained. "Sometimes doctors don't explain things clearly, and I can help you ask the right questions." Rose was grateful for the help, but she began to feel like she was losing control of her own medical decisions. Lisa seemed to have opinions about everything: which medications Rose should take, which treatments she should pursue, even which symptoms were worth mentioning to the doctor. Rose's best friend, Dorothy Walsh, noticed the changes during their weekly coffee dates. "You seem different lately, Rose. More anxious, maybe. Is everything all right?" Rose hesitated. She didn't want to seem ungrateful for Lisa's help, but she had been feeling overwhelmed lately. "Lisa's been wonderful, helping me with so many things, maybe too helpful, if that makes sense. Sometimes I feel like I can't make a decision without consulting her first." Dorothy frowned. "That doesn't sound healthy, dear. You've been managing your own life perfectly well for 71 years. "I know, but she's so knowledgeable about medical and financial matters, and she cares so much about my well-being." Dorothy made a mental note to pay closer attention to Rose's situation. She'd noticed that Rose seemed less confident lately, more dependent on others for decisions she'd always made easy. The isolation began gradually. Lisa started suggesting that some of Rose's longtime friends might not be the best influences. "I worry about Dorothy filling your head with negative thoughts," Lisa said after Dorothy had questioned some of Rose's new medical treatments. "She seems jealous of our relationship, and that kind of negativity isn't good for your health." Lisa also began discouraging Rose from participating in activities she'd always enjoyed. "I don't think you should continue volunteering at the library," Lisa said. "All that standing and organizing books isn't good for your arthritis. And driving across town twice a week seems risky at your age." Each suggestion seemed caring and reasonable, but gradually Rose found her world shrinking. She saw Dorothy less frequently, stopped volunteering, and spent more time at home waiting for Lisa's visits. Tom seemed oblivious to the changes in his mother's routine. He was deeply involved in coaching the school's debate team and planning lessons, and he trusted Lisa to help his mother in ways he couldn't. "Lisa's been such a blessing," Tom told Rose during one of his increasingly brief visits. "I know you're in good hands with her, looking out for you." Rose wanted to express her concerns, but she wasn't sure how to articulate what was bothering her. Lisa was always kind, always helpful, always seemingly motivated by genuine care. Rose began to wonder if she was being ungrateful or paranoid. The financial manipulation escalated slowly. Lisa began suggesting that Rose's investment portfolio needed professional management. "Your current financial advisor isn't very aggressive," Lisa observed during one of their bill-paying sessions. "I have a colleague who specializes in retirement planning for seniors. He might be able to get you better returns on your investments." Rose switched financial advisors based on Lisa's recommendation. The new advisor, Mr. Reynolds, seemed competent, but he also seemed to defer to Lisa's opinions rather than focusing on Rose's preferences. "Mrs. Patterson, Lisa has explained your situation to me," Mr. Reynolds said during their first meeting. "She's right that your current portfolio is too conservative. We should move some of your assets into higher yield investments." Rose felt uncomfortable with the aggressive changes being proposed, but Lisa and Mr. Reynolds seemed so confident that she agreed to the modifications. Within a few weeks, Rose noticed that accessing her own accounts had become more complicated. Lisa explained that the new investment structure required additional security measures, which meant that most transactions needed to be initiated through Lisa or Mr. Reynolds. "It's just a temporary inconvenience while everything gets set up properly," Lisa assured her. "Once the new system is in place, you'll have much better access to your money and much better returns." But Rose found that temporary seemed to be stretching indefinitely. When she wanted to make a large purchase or donation, she had to request approval from Lisa, who would then coordinate with Mr. Reynolds. Rose's grandson, Jake, Tom's 23-year-old son from his first marriage, noticed the changes during His monthly visits, Jake was a senior in college studying business, and he'd always been close to his grandmother. "Grandma, why do you need Lisa's permission to buy a new refrigerator?" Jake asked during one visit when Rose mentioned wanting to replace her aging appliance. "It's not permission, exactly," Rose explained, though she realized that's exactly what it felt like. "Lisa's helping me manage my finances more efficiently. The new system requires coordination for larger purchases." Jake looked skeptical. "Grandma, you've been managing your own money your entire adult life. Why do you suddenly need someone else to coordinate your purchases?" Rose didn't have a good answer for that question, and Jake's concern planted a seed of doubt that began to grow. The breaking point came when Rose tried to make her annual donation to the Children's Hospital, where she'd volunteered for years. When she mentioned the donation to Lisa, the response was immediate and firm. "Rose, I don't think that's a wise use of your money right now. You need to be more careful about your spending. What if you have a medical emergency and need those funds, Lisa? I've made this donation every year for the past decade. It's important to me. I understand it feels important, but you need to be practical. Your medical expenses are only going to increase as you get older." For the first time, Rose felt genuinely angry with Lisa. "This is my money, and this donation is important to me. I want to make it." Lisa's expression hardened slightly before she caught herself and returned to her usual caring demeanor. "Of course, Rose, I'm just trying to look out for your best interests. Let me coordinate with Mr. Reynolds to make sure the donation doesn't interfere with your investment strategy." But when Rose followed up a week later, Lisa reported that Mr. Reynolds had advised against the donation, and the money had been moved into a long-term investment that couldn't be accessed without penalties. Rose felt a surge of anger and helplessness. She was beginning to realize that she'd lost control of her own finances, but she wasn't sure how to regain it. That evening, Rose called Dorothy for the first time in weeks. "Dorothy, I need to talk to someone. Can you come over?" Dorothy heard the distress in her friend's voice and arrived within the hour. Over tea, Rose explained everything that had been happening: the financial changes, the medical decisions, the growing restrictions on her independence. "Rose, this sounds like Lisa is trying to control your life," Dorothy said bluntly, "and not for your benefit." "But she seems so caring, so concerned about my well-being." "Abusers often seem caring," Dorothy replied. "That's how they gain control." "Has she isolated you from other people who might question her actions?" Rose realized with shock that Dorothy was right. Lisa had systematically discouraged Rose from maintaining her friendships, participating in activities, and making independent decisions. "What should I do?" Rose asked, feeling overwhelmed. "We need to document what's happening and get help. This isn't just about hurt feelings. If Lisa has control over your finances, she could be stealing from you." Dorothy suggested they contact Jake, since he'd already expressed concerns and had business training that might help them understand the financial situation. Jake arrived the next evening, and Rose explained the entire situation. His reaction was immediate and alarmed. "Grandma, this sounds like financial elder abuse. Lisa has essentially taken control of your assets under the guise of helping you." Jake asked to see Rose's financial documents, and what he discovered was even worse than they'd feared. The new investment advisor had moved most of Rose's liquid assets into accounts that Lisa could access as power of attorney, but that required complex procedures for Rose to access herself. "Grandma, look at this," Jake said, pointing to account statements. "Lisa has been making regular transfers from your accounts to something called care management fees. She's been paying herself to manage your finances." Rose stared at the documents in shock. Over the past several months, Lisa had transferred nearly $15,000 from Rose's accounts to her own, disguised as legitimate care management expenses. "That's theft," Dorothy said flatly. Jake agreed. "We need to contact the police and a lawyer immediately. But first, we need to gather more evidence and document everything that's been happening." They developed a plan to investigate further while protecting Rose from additional financial harm. Jake would research the investment advisor and examine all of Rose's financial transactions. Dorothy would help Rose document the pattern of isolation and control. Together, they would gather evidence before confronting Lisa or involving law enforcement. Jake's investigation revealed that Mr. Reynolds, the financial advisor Lisa had recommended, had a history of questionable practices and had been sanctioned by financial regulatory authorities. The investment products he'd sold to Rose were high-commission products that benefited him and Lisa more than Rose's grandma. "You've been set up," Jake explained. "Lisa found a corrupt financial advisor who would help her steal from you legally by disguising it as investment management and care coordination." Dorothy's investigation into Lisa's background revealed even more disturbing information. Lisa had been married twice before, both times to older men who had died under suspicious circumstances. In each case, Lisa had inherited significant assets. After isolating her husbands from their families, "We need to warn Tom," Dorothy said. "He could be in danger too." But when Jake tried to discuss the situation with his father, Tom's reaction was defensive and dismissive. "Jake, I can't believe you're accusing Lisa of stealing from Grandma. She's been nothing but caring and helpful. Maybe Grandma is just getting confused about her finances?" "Dad, we have documentation. Lisa has been systematically stealing from Grandma and isolating her from everyone who might notice." "That's impossible. Lisa loves Mom. She's been taking care of her better than I ever could." Jake realized that Lisa had been manipulating Tom as well, convincing him that Rose was becoming confused and forgetful, and that Lisa's increasing control was necessary for Rose's protection. Faced with Tom's refusal to listen, Jake and Dorothy decided to proceed without his support. They contacted Elder Services and the Police Fraud Division to report the financial abuse. Detective Maria Gonzalez, who specialized in financial crimes against seniors, met with Rose, Jake, and Dorothy to review the evidence they'd gathered. "This is a textbook case of financial exploitation," Detective Gonzalez explained. "Lisa has used her position as power of attorney to systematically steal from Mrs. Patterson while isolating her from people who might notice the abuse." The detective explained that they would need to gather additional evidence before making arrests, but that Rose could take immediate steps to protect herself. "We need to revoke Lisa's power of attorney immediately and freeze the accounts she's been accessing," Detective Gonzalez advised. "We'll also need to coordinate with the financial regulatory authorities to investigate Mr. Reynolds." Rose felt a mixture of relief and sadness as she realized the extent of Lisa's betrayal. "I trusted her completely. She convinced me she cared about me. That's exactly how these predators operate," the detective explained. "They identify vulnerable seniors, gain their trust, then systematically exploit that trust for financial gain." The confrontation came when Lisa arrived for her usual visit and found Jake and Dorothy with Rose in the living room. Lisa's expression shifted immediately from her usual warm smile to a look of calculation and concern. "Rose, is everything all right? You seem upset." "Lisa, we need to talk," Rose said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I've discovered what you've been doing with my finances." Lisa's face went through a rapid series of expressions: surprise, concern, then a return to her caring demeanor. "Rose, I don't understand. I've been trying to help you manage your money more effectively. If there's some confusion about the accounts, I'm sure we can sort it out." Jake stood up, holding a folder full of documentation. "There's no confusion. Lisa, we have records of every unauthorized transfer you've made from my grandmother's accounts." Lisa's mask finally slipped. "Those weren't unauthorized. I have power of attorney, and Rose agreed to all the financial management arrangements." "You manipulated me into signing those documents," Rose said, finding her voice and her anger. "You isolated me from my friends, controlled my medical care, and stole my money while pretending to care about me." Lisa's expression turned cold and calculating. "You're an old woman who is becoming confused and making poor decisions. I saved you from yourself, and Tom agrees that you need supervision." "You manipulated Tom too," Dorothy interjected. "You convinced him that Rose was incompetent so you could justify controlling her life." Lisa realized that her carefully constructed manipulation was collapsing. She made one last attempt to regain control. "Rose, you're making a terrible mistake. Your family is turning you against the one person who truly cares about your well-being. Without my help, you'll end up in a nursing home." "The only person who's been threatening my independence is you," Rose replied firmly. "You've isolated me from everyone I love, and now you want to steal everything I've worked for? I may be 71, but I'm not the helpless old woman you thought I was." At that moment, Detective Gonzalez and 2 officers entered the house with a warrant for Lisa's arrest. "Lisa Martinez, you're under arrest for financial exploitation of an elderly person. Theft and fraud," Detective Gonzalez announced. Lisa's final facade crumbled completely. "This is ridiculous. Rose gave me access to her accounts voluntarily. Everything I did was legal. Obtaining power of attorney through manipulation and using it to steal from a vulnerable adult is not legal," the detective replied as Lisa was handcuffed. As Lisa was led away, she turned back to Rose with a look of pure malice. "You'll never survive without someone taking care of you. Tom will see that you need supervision and you'll end up exactly where I said you would." But Lisa was wrong. About Tom, confronted with his wife's arrest and the overwhelming evidence of her crimes, Tom was forced to acknowledge the reality of what had been happening. "Mom, I'm so sorry," Tom said when he arrived at Rose's house that evening, looking devastated. "I was so happy to have found love again that I ignored all the warning signs. Lisa convinced me that you were becoming forgetful and that her help was necessary." She's very good at manipulation, Rose replied, embracing her son. She convinced me to for a long time. The investigation revealed the full scope of Lisa's crimes. She had stolen over $40,000 from Rose through fraudulent investment fees, unauthorized transfers, and fake care management charges. The corrupt financial advisor, Mr. Reynolds, had been taking high commissions on inappropriate investment products while funneling additional money to Lisa. Lisa's background. Investigation revealed an even more disturbing pattern. She had been married 3 times previously, each time 2 older men with significant assets. In 2 cases, her husbands had died under suspicious circumstances shortly after making Lisa the beneficiary of their life insurance policies and estates. Your case helped us connect Lisa to a pattern of elder abuse and possible homicide. Detective Gonzalez informed Rose. She's facing charges in multiple jurisdictions. The legal proceedings took several months, but eventually Lisa was convicted. On charges of financial exploitation, theft, and fraud, she received a sentence of 8 years in prison and was ordered to pay full restitution to all her victims. Rose recovered most of her stolen money and took steps to prevent future exploitation. She revoked all power of attorney documents and established new safeguards for her financial management, including requiring multiple family members to approve any significant financial decisions. More importantly, Rose reclaimed her independence and rebuilt her support network. She resumed her friendship with Dorothy, returned to volunteering at the library, and re-established her relationships with old friends. I learned that asking for help doesn't mean giving up control, Rose explained to a support group for elder abuse survivors. Real help empowers you to maintain your independence. False help takes your independence away. Tom struggled with guilt over his role in enabling Lisa's abuse, but gradually rebuilt his relationship with his mother based on greater awareness and respect for her autonomy. 6 months after Lisa's conviction, Rose had fully reclaimed her independence and confidence. She'd learned to recognize the warning signs of manipulation and exploitation, and she'd developed a strong support network of family and friends who respected her autonomy while offering genuine assistance. The experience had been traumatic, but it had also revealed Rose's inner strength and resilience. At 71, she'd proven that she was capable of fighting for herself and reclaiming control of her life. 1 year after Lisa's arrest, Rose received an unexpected visitor, Tom's new girlfriend, Janet, a widow his own age who worked as a teacher at his school. Janet was warm, genuine, and respectful of Rose's independence. "I'd love to get to know you better," Janet said during their first meeting, "but I want you to know that I have no interest in managing your life or your finances. I'm here because I care about Tom, and I'd like to be your friend if you're interested." Rose appreciated Janet's straightforward approach and her respect for boundaries. Their relationship developed slowly and naturally, based on mutual respect rather than manipulation. As Rose reflected on the year's events, she realized that Lisa's betrayal had ultimately made her stronger and more confident. She learned to trust her instincts, value her independence, and recognize the difference between genuine care and calculated manipulation. Standing in her garden that she'd reclaimed from Lisa's restrictions, Rose smiled as she watched the flowers she'd planted herself bloom in the spring sunshine. She was exactly where she belonged in her own home, surrounded by people who genuinely loved her, living life according to her own choices. The trusted hand that had tried to control her life had instead taught her the true value of independence and the importance of genuine relationships built on respect rather than manipulation.